Hello, everybody. How's everyone's chairs going? That's good. Nope. So, while Maya loads up, yeah, what's up?
Oh, I was gonna ask, what's an easy way to figure out how to see how large an object is in Maya? Like, for instance, like, when I want to, like, size up an object, but I want to know the exact measurements, it won't necessarily work. Like, if I'm extruding from a cylinder, for example, and I want to, like, see how many length with height it is, it's not accurate.
That is an excellent question. Give me just a second.
Like, I want to know, like, what it is in relation to the units that Maya has.
So, the first and worst way of figuring out how big something is by using a side view and counting your grid lines. That's the way I do it because I'm crazy. You could turn off. The other way of doing it is if you go into, I believe, where is it? There is a tool somewhere that lets you measure things. I've never used the measure tool before, but I know it exists. Measure tools. Aha. Create measure tools. If you go to the create measure tools, the important one is distance. Your mouse will become a little happy dot thing. If you hold V to snap it to vertexes, you can click a vertex and then click another vertex, and it'll spawn a thing that tells you how big that distance is.
Oh, hey, that's pretty useful.
Yeah. That thing will exist in all of your viewports and will always be aimed towards the camera, which is why I don't use it, because it's distracting to me.
So when you spawn one, you can't get rid of it?
Do what?
You can or can't get rid of it?
You can get rid of it, yeah. So the way it works is you've got these distance dimension things and these locators in your outliner. If you click one of the locators, you can actually move it around so that you can measure different distances. But you can always just delete them. Gosh, I failed to log into D2L. See what happens? Let's try that again. So, since we're starting class a bit late, really quick, you should all have grades in for your dice and your crates and your discussions, all of that fun stuff. If anyone doesn't have a grade for those, I'd probably talk to you individually about stuff that needed to be changed. Or you're in the fourth category of I forgot and I missed one on accident. Let me know if you don't have grades for something. I'll get on that quickly. That being said, our chairs are due Wednesday, if I remember correctly. Let me pull up the chairs. Now, most of you have probably already finished this chair. Not a lot of hard stuff there. We're going to be talking about this chair today. Hello? Aha, chair. Cool. Let's pull it up on Amazon. That's not Amazon. That's Amazon. A chair. Huzzah. It's the wrong chair, isn't it? Yeah, it sure is. Oh well. We're going to. I have hit the Windows key on accident. Here's the chair. Let me also really quickly open up my email. So, as I pull up my email, can anybody tell me what simple shapes, what primitives we'd like to cut this chair up into?
Squares and cylinders.
Squares and cylinders is a good answer. Can you be a little bit more specific? Anyone at all.
It's like polyprimitives. What do you mean specifically by that?
So, polyprimitives. Alright, let's talk about polyprimitives. Our polyprimitives are everything in this happy little box and everything we see in Create. Specifically in the Polygon Primitives tab, you know, you've got your spheres, your cubes, your cylinders, your cones, your planes, your disks. We haven't really talked about most of these, but from the very simple ones, right? We've got this chair to look at. I've managed to open my email. We've got this chair to look at. So let's start talking about some shapes. What about everything from the seat down? Everything below the seat, what is that? What sorts of shapes do we see?
Cylinders.
A ton of cylinders, great. So everything from about here down can be broken up into a bunch of cylinders. What about this stuff, these bars holding the chairs, the wheels?
Could also still be cylinders, but extrusions.
Could also still be cylinders. Could also be a cone shape. The wheels also could be cylinders, but they could also be spheres because they're sort of round on the ends. All right, what about the seat itself? The seat itself looks a bit like a rectangle. Any other votes of confidence towards the seat?
Could be like more of a cylinder that could cut in half.
Could be a cylinder cut in half, yeah, because of that arch. All right, what about the handles? Well, armrests, I guess is the better word. Cubes, very good answer. And what about the back of the chair? Has anyone seen the back of the chair from that weird 3-point view that I sent a while back? Let's see if I can get this to show me the back of the chair. Thoughts on the back of the chair? It's very straight, very rectangular, except for the weird bulge up top. So we're gonna model it as a rectangle. But if I let it turn around just a bit more, you see that it's got this hollow spine sort of dealio. So this could also be a donut, which in Maya is called a torus. This is a torus. You could flatten that out and call it the back of the chair very easily. You could also call it a cylinder. You make a cylinder shape and then you just cut out the middle and then you squash it in. The bars that go across the chair, those can be squares or cylinders. But let's get a move on. So first off, who remembers how to add an image to Maya? Any volunteers?
You do so in your 4 views there, top left is view.
Yes.
Then you go to import image plane, right?
Yes. Import image plane. Good answer. Good answer. Let me actually save this as an image real fast. Go to my downloads. And here's the chair. Great. The chair exists. Can somebody close the back door real quick? I'm also going to go ahead and go to the website once more. And I'm going to dig through these for my favorite image, you. So, something we haven't talked about. Currently, this is my front-facing image plane. I'm also going to add an image plane on my side view because this way, let's see, I now have 2 images. Ha 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 ha. Drag one way over there, drag one over there. Now they're different sizes, but I'm going to look at the one with the actual scale, figure out how big my chair needs to be. We've got a chair that measures 45 off the ground. I'm going to use the minimum measurement because the hydraulic pump in the chair moves up and down So 45 and 56, quick maths, 101. So I'm gonna make a cube. And this happens to be in centimeters, so we don't have to do our 2.5 trick. We're gonna make it 101 tall. Not that tall, there we go. 101 tall. G, V, X, drag it up to the base. That is the height of my chair. Now that I know how tall my chair is, I can adjust my reference image accordingly. I'm going to hit D and move I'm not going to hold V, I'm just going to move this down so that it sort of lines up with the bottom of those wheels. Then I'm going to move the bottom of those wheels up to the X. I'm just going to scale my image up until it's the right size. Make sure that the top of the chair aligns roughly with the top of our cube. I made it a bit too big, but that's good enough for reference image. Maybe a little smaller. There we go. Now we've got one in the proper scale. Let's do the same thing with the other one. You know how tall it is. But this one's in a 3/4 view, so it's going to be a bit different. I'm going to sort of go for the average of where all of my wheels are. Right about there. Scale her up. Ooh. There we go. Roughly the right size. And I can double check that by dragging this image a little bit back and seeing that the intersection between the backs of the chair in both images are roughly the same height. Yeah, that looks about right. Oh yeah, that's fine. Alright, now I'm dragging the images back and forward. You might notice in the side view that when it's in the positive, it pops above the grid. I'm going to drag it way to the back just so that it's off the grid and I don't have to worry about it. And I'm only going to be looking at my reference images from my orthographic views and not in this center bit. Now from here, we know that it's 49 inches wide, or 49 centimeters wide, so I'm going to take my polycube, make it 49 centimeters wide. I'm going to keep saying inches. Alright, oh, I believe I've made it deep. Let's try that again. 46 to 50 centimeters deep. Let's call it 47. 49. There we go. That's my cube. And I can drag my reference image to line it up with the cube. Yeah, that looks about right. Have I bungled it? My chair might be a little small. That looks fine. So here's my reference cube. Create layer from selected. Template. Cube. Huzzah. So now what we're going to do is we're going to start with the contraption on the bottom. The contraption on the bottom, whoop, I'm going to select an image, is a cylinder with, we discussed either a cylinder or a cone around it. Let's just call it all one cylinder so that we can only do it with extrudes. I covered this a bit last Wednesday, or did I do it last Wednesday or last Monday? I forgot. But we're going to do it again just in case. So, cylinder. Now, it's round, and it goes a bit wider than the 49 inches that the seat does. So our radius, let's call it half of 50, so 25. And we don't need to adjust our height too much, because what we can do is use our view here. I'm going to just select the top faces of the cylinder. You can hold tab to draw a selection. So I'm just going to draw the top of the cylinder. I bet all of you wish you knew that weeks ago. And then I can just drag this up to where I want it. So the cylinder ends up about there. Ta-da. That is the bottom of our chair. Now we've got this wonderful side view. I'm going to flip over to this. Our tube, we've got a thickness for it. We can match up to our image. But the width of the chair It actually looks to be a bit wider, so I'm going to line up my reference image again, split the difference about there, make my cube a bit wider, or my cylinder a bit wider. All that good, make it a bit shorter. There we go, one more time. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to, in my perspective view, but looking at my side view, I'm going to add a multi-cut roughly lined up with the base of the chair. Now, if I hit 4, you can see that it's a little bit low. You can line it up by hitting 4 in one view and hitting 5 in the other view, so that we get it right where we want it. So now, all of these faces will become the frame for holding up the wheels, and all of these faces will become the tube in the middle. So, starting with the tube in the middle, I'm going to hold tab, that's caps lock, hold tab, paint the top of my cylinder, and delete those faces. Why am I deleting those faces? Any response? That is a question. I heard an answer from this side of the room. Now you're locked in. Nobody. All right, so the reason I'm deleting those faces is because they won't be visible, right? They're gonna be on the inside of the chair. They're gonna be stuck into the seat of the chair. So there's no reason for them to exist. We don't need them. Now I'm gonna select these faces that are gonna become the cube, or the hydraulic in the middle, and I'm going to extrude them in. That is Control E, or Edit Mesh Extrude, or Mesh Extrude. Gonna pull these in, and we're gonna leave behind something that looks like a cylinder. Don't worry too much about that yet. But I'm just gonna pull these in, looking at my side view. Remember that the reason I can't do this in this view is because I don't have access to my little blue arrow, which is why I have to do the motion here, but look at the other window. And I'm gonna line it up to this thick part of the hydraulic down here. Then, I'm going to cut it again. Multi-cut tool, line that up with the top of that. Select my faces again. Ooh. There we go. Extrude them in a bit more. Same thing, one more time. Extrude them in a bit more. And that is the metal tube that is going to hold up our chair. And it's also something that we might use later as the bottom of the seat, right? Because the bottom of the seat has this weird metal bit that plugs into. You can go watch the silly little YouTube video if you want to model the, I don't even know the name of the mechanism. It's got this funky little metal frame bit at the bottom. No, thank you. Don't model this. I mentioned it before. If you really want to model this, be my guest, but I'm not going to make you model that. So, back to mine. We've got our metal pole that's holding up our chair. Now let's talk about the chair legs. Now, according to this diagram, the chair legs are flat. But we know from seeing the actual image that I have over here, chair legs are not flat, they're slightly angled downwards. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select my faces that are ringing around this, and I'm going to drag them up a bit. And the reason I'm going to drag them up a bit is so that I have room to angle the legs later. Then, I'm going to select the bottom faces. Again, hold tab, that is caps lock. I've done this every time so far. Ooh, there we go. I'm going to delete the bottom faces. Why am I deleting the bottom faces? They won't be seen. Then, I'm going to realize that I've already messed up, but we're going to play this off anyways. So, I should have, when I started making this, counted the edges on my cylinder. Why? Because we've got 5 chair legs. I didn't count. But luckily the default cylinder has 20 sides. 20 sides are divisible by 5, so we can just skip every 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. There we go. And that should give me 4. Oh dear. I need to end up with 5. Let's try 3. 1, 2, 3. This is not going to work. This is going to select 12 out of 15. Ah, joy. 1, 2. Is that right? That is right. It is skip 3. Alright, one more. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Delete those. Huzzah! Now I've got 5 left over. That is the correct number. I'm not a lost cause. So, if you don't want to be Alex and do silly things, count the number of sides your cylinder has before you get to the step. Otherwise, well, there are workarounds. I've accidentally deleted one too many face. I'm going to recreate it by extruding this one down. There we go. So this is the start of my chair wheel leg things. But I've deleted a lot of excess geometry, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to select the side faces of these extrusions. So this one, 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 and that one. And I'm going to extrude all of them together. And when I do this, I'm going to push them in. Isn't that something? Now, because I'm pushing them in, and I've deleted a bunch of excess sides, it doesn't know that they should all be heading towards the center. Right? It forgot that it was a cylinder. So instead of getting an angle very similar to the initial angle, let me zoom in here, instead of having them end up here, they're all sort of splaying out. I can fix that with the scale tool, but it might not always work because this is a cylinder. So instead, what we're going to do is we're going to use the weld tool. So, vertex, weld. It is this second to last button over here. I'm going to make sure that my selection is empty, and I'm going to start welding vertices. So just the top ones to where I want them to go. So you to go here, you to go there, you to go here. Lots of fun, busy work. And that's all of the tops fixed. Now the bottoms aren't fixed. Luckily, you can select any of these vertices, hold V, and just drag them above where they're supposed to be. I'm going to do this in the top view so you can see sort of what I'm talking about. So in the top view, you can see that we have this weird star pattern. We want to make sure that all of the edges match to where they're supposed to be. So I'm going to hold V and I'm going to select the circle around the vertex. I'm just going to drag it to where I want it. Now if I do that, when I come back here, I pay really close attention, you'll notice that it has dragged upwards. That is because it is dragging to this vertex, which happens to be in the same location vertically. One way to fix that is by selecting all of those faces that you really don't want to see, deselecting the faces that you don't care about. Let's select from the bottom instead. Do that. Control 1, hide all of those faces. Even still, now if we do it, go back to vertex, select our face, move it into position. It'll snap to the topmost one because they haven't been hidden here. So what we actually want to do is Control 1 in this window to hide them. Go back to vertex, move it around. Now it'll snap to this vertex here in the middle because we didn't hide that one. So last try, we're going to select all of the vertexes around the bottom. There they all selected. Come back here, Control 1. And one more time, vertex, hold V, drag it into position. There it goes. Snap to where we want it. Have I lost anyone about how Control 1 works with views that aren't the perspective view? I'll take that as a no. If, for some reason, you don't do that and your vertex is snapping still upwards, you can snap it back down in the perspective view by holding V. So, I'll just move these all into position, snap them down. Have I lost anyone? Anyone need any help? Yes.
I'm lost since you were selecting the faces to make the like walls down there.
Right. So when I made my cylinder originally, I did not check how many faces it had. So because of that, I had to do some funky math to figure out how I'm going to end up with 5 legs. So I know that there are 20 subdivisions around, and initially I said, well, let's just count every 4 and then skip 1 and see if that ends up with having 5 legs left over. And in fact, it doesn't, leaves me with 4, and they're sort of... So instead, just select every 3, or you can make a cylinder with 5 sides. Both are perfectly valid. But in this case, if I select every 3, I end up with 5 legs left over. So I can just do this, delete the extra legs, and then extrude the ones that I leave behind in. But you don't, let me very quickly explain this. You don't want to extrude the faces in. And the reason you don't want to extrude the faces in is because you'll end up with this black stuff, and the interior of the face will end up being the correct side, and you'll have to do a bunch of mesh reverse stuff. Instead, just select the boundary edges. So I just select these 2 and extrude those in. You might have to, you want to do this with multiple of them selected, so it's not going to work if I do that. So let me delete the remaining 3 faces here. So we select all of our boundary edges, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 8, 7, 8, 9, 10, 2 per leg, and extrude those in, and that'll get the walls without messing up the faces. You on that far?
I think I'm just struggling getting them to extrude inward is my issue.
Hello.
Hello.
You've got them all selected.
Yes. They should all be at least. Like
Yes.
whenever I try and go in now.
Delete your history first. Edit, delete by type, history. Now you still have it on extrude. Do me a favor and hit 3. Interesting, very interesting.
I can just remake it if need be.
You shouldn't have to is the thing. But, okay, so extrude them as they were and make them look weird. Just pull out. You don't have to pull them out all the way. Pull them out a reasonable distance, right? A little bit less. Right about there. So if you pull them that far, you can still use the weld tool and drag the vertexes to where they need to be.
All right.
You don't have to worry about getting it too close.
I got a question.
Yes.
Correct. Alright, so I already messed up the vertex.
Great.
But I've been like working through it.
Yeah.
And now I can make keys. So
What was
it's done here. But as far as like anything with the control
Yeah.
that kind of lost it, but also want to fix this. Now that I have these 2.
So, our good friend, insert name here.
Drew, hey.
Drew. Thank you, Drew. Our good friend Drew has an extra subdivision on some of these. So, let's add a couple extra subdivisions to this to fix it. So I've got this weird situation where I've got two vertexes to align instead of one. No problem. I'm going to select them both. Both of those are already lined up, so I'll select these two instead. So if I select them both at the same time, hello, please, thank you. If I select them both at the same time and I look at my top view, I can still do the hold V trick to move them into position, but you'll notice that I'm moving them based on the average distance between the two. So you can just grab them one at a time and move them into position. It is time consuming, but you can do it. The other option is delete the edge loops, move them into position, and then re-add the edge loops, which is slightly faster. Does that answer your question, Drew?
Holy crap, I can just do that?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. If you ever run into a situation where things seem awkward, sometimes the best option is undo a step or delete some stuff and rebuild it again later. And you will be surprised how often that saves your ass. Yes?
Sorry if I'm not following along, like, why exactly are we snapping the vertices out that way?
So if you look at this chair leg, for instance, right? The bottom of this chair leg is considerably wider than the top of the chair leg. So I'm just making it actually rectangular. That's all.
Yeah.
And I've decided to do this in a way that is an educational moment. I want to show you tools that you might not have used before, such as the weld tool and snapping vertices to other vertices to fix awkward geometry.
So you're not moving them vertically, just horizontally?
Just horizontally.
Okay.
Nope, wrong vertex. You. Ta-da.
Where's the weld tool exactly?
The weld tool is the second to last tool on the polygon modeling bar.
Oh.
It looks like a square with an orange bar in the middle.
Thank you.
It's called the target weld tool. Nobody calls it the target weld tool, it's just the weld tool. I don't know if there's another weld tool. Don't worry about it. So these are the legs of my chair. So I'm gonna hit 5 in my side view to see what that looks like. And you'll notice, let's turn off the grid in the side view so that we get a bit of a better view. What are you? Ah, right, I have another mesh over here. You get out of the way. There we go. That looks a lot better. All right, so now that I've got the start of my legs, I'm going to pull all of these vertexes in the middle up. Whoop. There's the angle. Now, I'm going to pull all of the outside vertices up, but not all the way. Just up to the top of my wheel. Great. And last trick, these vertexes along the top, these will come down, dum-dum, dum-dum-dum-dum-dum. There we go. Drag these down to where the top is in the diagram. Those are my chair legs. Now, you will notice that they're a bit wide at the sides. That can be fixed, if I remember how, with the scale tool. Let's try selecting all of these. Dum-de-dum-de-dum. There we go. Oh gosh, something has happened. Okay. Whew. Okay, something has happened with my tool setup, so I won't be showing this off. That's a darn shame. Let's see if that. Nope. Alright. Well, given that the tool is not behaving properly, we'll have to squeal these in individually. So, that is a darn shame. So, if you realize that these are wide, and you attempt to scale them in, the first thing you'll notice is that your scale tool doesn't line up with the face. And if you try to scale it in a certain way, you'll end up with this weird diagonal twisting. In order to fix this, we're going to pop up our tool settings. That is done by double-clicking the scale tool on the side. This works if you open any old tool. Double-click that. Oh gosh, come back. Become a separate window. Thank you. And what we're going to do, undo this. We are going to click this little down arrow and set it to component. And if you set it to component, you'll notice that the widget has rotated. So one more time, it is originally set to object. That gives us this weird off-center thing. We're going to swap it to component, and now it lines up with the face. And then you can just scale it, and it ends up facing the same way. We're going to do that for all of these. Every time you click, it might reset back to object. Just do a quick double check. Get them all to the right size. There we go. And those are our chair legs. Now if you smooth this, we'll get sort of the right effect that we see in the chair. Oh, come back, chair. We've got this weird tearing effect along the sides, but they also sort of have a cylindrical base to them. So, because of that cylindrical base to them, I strongly advise that you create cylinders. Now these cylinders we will position radially to the legs of the chairs. So, does anyone know the internal angle of a pentagon? What, you might ask? All right, so in order to line these up correctly, we hold D, V, move it to the vertexes at the end of our chair, but you'll notice that they're sort of off center. Recenter them. Boop. Easy as pie. If you don't want it to be imperfect, a potential solution is to just line up one of them, right? So I've got this one sort of lined up, and then open up a calculator. Great. There are 5 legs, and a circle has 360 degrees, so I'm going to type in 360 over 5. That's going to tell me the internal angle of a pentagon. That is 72. 72 is a magical number, because what I can do from here is I can freeze transformations, modify freeze transformations. This is a new thing. If I hit modify freeze transformations, pay very close attention to the stuff over there in my channel box. Boom, it's all zeros now. Who missed it? One more time. I've got an object in the middle of nowhere. Modify, freeze transformations, everything is set to 0. Before I do that, I'm going to make sure that this cylinder doesn't have 20 sides. I'm going to bring it down to 8. Do that one more time. Modify, freeze transformations. Now I've got this octagonal cylinder in the middle of nowhere. But my pivot isn't at 0, right? 0 is over here. This is zeroed out, but my pivot isn't there. So I'm going to hit D. I'm going to align my pivot back with the grid. Tuck, 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 tuck. So there's my pivot in the center of the grid, and here's my cylinder way off. But it's sort of in position now, so what I can do is in my rotate Y, I can type in that 72 number that I just Googled, and it'll pop into the next one. Right? 0, 72, 0, 72. So, before I type in that 72, I'm going to duplicate it. Control D. Now I've got a second cylinder. This cylinder I'm going to make 72 away. And from here, I can keep duplicating and keep adding 72 to that number, and it'll always pop into position. Or I can hit Shift D, which is duplicate with transform. And if I spam Shift D, voila! And I have the cylinder in all of the positions that I would ever want. Did I lose anyone about Shift D and the freeze transformation? Yes. Great. All right. So I have a cylinder. That cylinder is somewhere. That cylinder is here at 18,4,18. The pivot of my cylinder is at that location. If I want to do this the easy way, what I do is I go to Modify, Freeze Transformations. This makes it so that all of my transforms in the channel box say 0. That is now its spawn point. However, the pivot is at that new point. I don't want it there. I want the pivot at actual 0, 0, 0. So I will hold D and X to snap it to the grid. Now it's actually at 0, 0, 0. And if I move it around from here, you can see that my pivot and my object do not share the same location, but they're still connected. Everyone good so far? Now I'm going to duplicate it. Control D. Type in my rotation number that I Googled. 360 over 5 is 72. Hit 72. That pops it over here. And then I'm going to hit Shift D, which is duplicate with transform. And all of these have added 72 to that angle.
Okay, but why did that happen?
So duplicating it with transform, what it does is it says, okay, what is the difference between this new cylinder and the original copy? And it says, well, the only difference is that we've rotated it 72 degrees. So when I duplicate it, oh, I need to remind it that I told it 72 degrees. 72 degrees, please, thank you. When I duplicate it, Maya, please cooperate. Okay, let's try this again. 72. One duplicate. I've changed it by 72 degrees. Shift D. Hallelujah. What this new cylinder says is 144 degrees. That is because 72 plus 72 is 144. That's it. Shift D just says, whatever you did to the last duplicate, do it again. So I hit Shift D again, 216, that's 144 plus 72. Shift D one more time, negative 72. Well, that's because instead of doing all of that math, it just does this math. Any questions about Shift D and duplicate special and duplicate with transform, Googling the internal angle of cylinders? Great. So these are the legs of my cylinders. Now, I will have to Boolean those cylinders into the legs of my chair. You should all be masters of this at this point, except that now the cylinder, the square you're Booleaning it into has no bottom. So what I expect you to do is add in that extra edge loop where you're going to Boolean it in. You're probably going to scale down the cylinder a bit so that it fits inside of your chair leg. And you're going to delete the top and bottom of the cylinder because it doesn't have that. Go to tab, select the bottom faces, get rid of them. Probably you're going to delete the half of the cylinder that isn't facing towards the end of the chair leg. So we're going to delete that half. Maybe leave 2 faces just in case. So I'm actually going to delete these 2 faces just in case you want to do this. And these 8 faces on the top of the cylinder are actually going to be the new top of my cube. So I'm going to shift this up until that sort of pops in from the bottom. There we go. I'm going to rotate it slightly so that it lines up with the angle of our chair leg. Rotate it back a bit. There we go. That's gonna be the new base of the new end of my chair leg. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm going to go to Mesh Combine, Object Mode, Combine, and instead of doing any fancy stuff, I'm just gonna delete the old end, and bridge the new end. So these faces will bridge with these faces. I'm going to delete this extra vertex. Whoop. Show again. Delete this extra vertex. Please, thank you. Boolean these three edges with these three edges. That looks a little wonky. I'm going to select the two edges that make it look wonky and scale them out. Come on. Why don't you love me? Did I accidentally turn on symmetry? Nope. Okay. Let's open up my settings and see what I messed up. Aha! I still have it set to component. So let's set that to object. Don't like that. Set to edge. I'm going to select the edge in the middle. There we go. That's what I like to see. And lastly, I'm going to make sure that it's all properly aligned. Select all these. There we go. That's the end of my chair leg. Any questions? Now I'm not going to do that 4 more times because that seems like a waste of time. As far as the wheels go, let's talk about the wheels. Where'd the wheel go? It's over here, isn't it? Aha, the wheel. This image. Oh gosh, that's so grainy. Can I get the image with actual resolution, please? Thank you. So the wheels, we talked about the wheels last Wednesday. They're cylinders with extra cylinder bits. Has anyone actually made the wheels yet? Wow. All right, we'll talk about the wheels. So the wheels are fairly simple. I'm going to go back here. I'm going to see, aha, the diagram says they're circles. Great, I'm going to spawn a cylinder. I'm going to scale it up a bit. And I'm going to rotate it. See if I can match the scale of the circles in the diagram. Yeah, sure, that's wheel shape. And because we've been following the diagram, it lines up with the chair legs. Isn't that amazing? So I'm going to drag this wheel into position. And we're going to start modeling the wheel. So, zooming on the wheel. Wheel's done. We're going to decrease our edge loops. Not 20, not 8, because we're not going to bully it into anything. I'm going to go with a comfortable 16. 16 seems like a good number. And I'm going to add, let's say, 1 cap division. And I'm going to add 2 height subdivisions. That is not, there we go, 2 height subdivisions. Because 1 plus 2 is 3. So here's where the start of my wheel is. Great. I'm going to select this edge of faces in the middle, the string of faces, and I'm going to swatch them nice and wide. And that's going to be this fun little bridge portion in the middle. I'm going to extrude those out. And I'm going to delete about half of them. Whoop. We don't need these. Probably don't need these. Definitely don't need these. Great, here's the start of my wheel. Now the inside of our wheel can remain mostly hollow because we're going to be seeing this from about that far away. But you're welcome to bridge the inside. If you bridge the inside, make sure that it has the right number of polygons, make sure that it has quads. I'm just going to leave the chair wheel like this for now. So from here, I'm going to take another look at our reference. There's a little bit of a gap in between the actual wheel and the frame holding it. So I'm going to add an edge loop here. and an edge loop here. This is on the inside of that lip. And I'm going to select that lip. I'm going to extrude it in. Just a bit in, so that from the outside, it looks like that. Now it looks like the frame is actually holding the wheel, as opposed to being a part of it. Lastly, it has this little cylinder bit that sticks up out of it. Same trick we did with the other cylinder. On the cylinder, drag it roughly into position. Drag it up to where it's supposed to be, right about there. You can line it up to the center of the cylinder if you really want, adding a subdivision that is halfway down your cylinder. That way you have vertexes to snap it to. There we go. That's nice and lined up. Scale it down because it's supposed to fit inside of the chair leg. Right? Fix this weird edge loop thing that you have going on that you didn't notice earlier, and you're wondering if your students noticed it earlier. And I feel really awkward. Go to Scale Tool. I'm going to select my Scale Tool options. Set this to the edge that I like. That is not an edge. Set this to the edge that I like. Thank you. There we go. Much better. Now, this cylinder needs to be Boolean into this chair. So, cylinder, decrease the edge loops. This one's getting Boolean. We're going to drop it down to 8. We're going to see where we're Booleaning it in. We're Booleaning it into, these 4 squares. Isn't that convenient? So, since we're doing it with 4 squares, I'm just going to do the mesh combine bridge method. Combine, faces, these 4. Get rid of them. This edge. Extrude it in. Offset. Ooh, doesn't like that. Never mind. While they're still in existence. These 4. Offset. There we go. Get this sort of lined up. Great. Scale it in so it just matches up with the cylinder. Delete those edges and bridge these. What error? What error did you give me? Is it that one of them is slightly too low? Some mesh. Oh, did I forget to boolean them? No, one mesh. Alright, let's try this the other way. Since these edges appear to be too low, I'm going to drag them over it. Aha! That's my issue. I forgot to delete the faces. So, all of you need to go. Let's see. Not you. You. And you. All of the faces on the bottom of my cylinder need to go. There we go. Now, when I try to bridge them, it should be happy. Huzzah! Now, it's going to look a little clunky, but when we smooth it, ain't that a wheel? Now, this needs a lot of fencing to get it to look perfect, right? And especially it needs a couple of faces deleted so that we don't get this weird tear effect. So I'm going to delete this face, and the same 2 faces on the back, that one and that one. And when I fence it, I want to make sure that I'm fencing both sides of this edge loop. So one on the inside, one on the outside. Same thing over here. One on the inside, one on the outside. One on the frame, one on the frame, one on the actual wheel itself. Call that good. Right, now it has some of that definition. And the very last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hold tab, select the interior faces of these caps I made, and I'm going to scale them out just a bit to give the wheel sort of that bulge shape that they have in the reference. Quick and easy chair wheel, done in 8 minutes. Did I lose anyone with the chair wheel at any point? I have one no. Congratulations for speaking for the entire class, but providing a no for the first time in history. All right, now for the main event, the chair seat. So, the chair seat, not very visible in this image. Let's get a 3/4 view. We've heard rectangle, we've heard cylinder, we've heard a lot of options. The chair seat is a shape that I would like to call a saddle, right? This is a mathematical term. What a saddle looks like, if anyone has ever ridden a horse, is I'm going to take this plane here. Whoop. Whoop. This is a plane. What I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a couple faces down the middle. Not quite that many. And with my soft select, I'm going to drag them up. Oh, my soft select looks a bit rough today. What is my soft select set to? Well, let's crank that up to 10. And let's only select the middle edge. So, a saddle has a bit of a hump in the middle, but it also has a bit of a dip in the middle. That's a saddle. So, how do we replicate that? Well, that's one way. But an easier way is with our friend the donut. We haven't touched the donut yet, but we're going to touch it now. So here's the donut, also known as a torus. The donut has several attributes. If you open up your attributes list, you have height baseline, radius, section radius, twist, and subdivisions. So what do these mean? The radius is the same as any old radius, right? That makes it bigger and smaller. The section radius makes it thicker. The twist does this. You can't really tell what it does, but you'll be able to tell it if you reduce the subdivision axes to, let's say, 4. So this is what it looks like when there are only 4 subdivisions, and now you will see what the twist does. So if I change my twist to 30, let's actually make the subdivision's height also say 3. So this is what it looks like. And as I increase and decrease my twist, it sort of does this flip thing where it turns inside out. But it's actually like trying to rotate on an axis that runs through the middle. Don't worry too much about the twist. It's just a thing that we have access to. I'm going to crank my subdivisions back to 1010. Here we go. And I'm going to hit Control-1 again so that we can see that I've made it massive. Alright, set this back to 1, set this back to 0.5. Hit F. Welcome back to reality. So, why have I decided to make a torus? Well, that's because if we pay really close attention to this middle bit, it has 2 sides that go up and 2 sides that go down. Ain't that the easiest chair in the world? I'm going to increase my subdivisions a bit. Maybe, let's say, from 10 we go 20, just to get that nice rounded shape. I'm going to delete all of the faces that I do not care about. So, delete all these. Make sure that I have it symmetrical. What? Why aren't you symmetrical right now? What's going on? Have I chosen an odd number? I did. 16. There we go. Fix that. Now we'll delete all the faces we don't like. All the faces we don't like. Get rid of that. Boom, this is the seat of our chair. I'm going to delete a ring around the side, because I actually just care about the plane. That's our seat. That's our seat. Now from here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to scale it a bit. Let's get it nice and squashed. Let's get it a bit wide. Let's line it up to the rough dimensions of our bounding box. That looks not terrible. Alright. And lastly, I'm going to grab these two edges that make this semicircle shape. So I'm going to select one of them, hit R, scale them in, nice and straight. These two, curve, scale them in, nice and straight. Have I lost anyone so far? Yes.
I was like deleting the part of the faces and then I forgot. It took me a while to do that.
Yeah. So delete about half of the bottom of the donut. Yeah, like, I'll undo a couple steps. We don't care about the bottom of the donut because we're just going to replace that with flat. So this is our donut shape. I just delete the bottom half.
Okay.
Squish in the sides. One more time. Part. Same thing over here. Part. That's our chair seat. Look back at our reference, see that it's a bit more square. So what we're going to do is I'm going to straighten out the front end vertically and the back end vertically so that we end up with something that looks like it could transition into a square. If we hit smooth, we're going to see that it looks like a chair seat. Object control 1. Now from here, I'm going to select all of the faces but those two edges that I scaled down on the sides, and I'm going to extrude them down. So all of these faces. I'm going to line them up with the corner vertexes. Swap the camera. Thank you. So I've extruded the side faces down, and I'm going to scale them flat. Line them up. There we go. Now with my weld tool, once more time with my weld tool, I'm going to hook up the sides that I just extruded down to the fronts of my chair. Now my chair is two-dimensional. And lastly, I'm going to select all of the edges around the side. I'm going to extrude them down again. That's my chair seat. Now, from here, the astute among you will realize that chairs aren't square. Anyone that is sitting in a chair at the moment will notice that the back of the chair is slightly pinched out. So, I'm going to look at my chair. I'm going to pick a side to be the back. Since we have this weird 3/4 view, I'll pick whatever side is looking to be the back, and unfortunately, it's looking to be this side. Let's make sure we can look at that from a front view. So I've selected some of the faces. I'm looking at my front view to see if that selection is in front. It's not in front, therefore it's in back. So this is the back of my chair. I'll select a bunch of these faces. And if I just scale them in, it'll look a little weird. So I'm going to turn on my soft select. And I'm going to make sure that my soft select isn't too big. So let's go soft select. Let's go 20, so that it covers up about half the chair. Scale that in. Now I get something that looks a little smoother. Alternatively, if you have the whole object selected, remember that we can always go to our deform flare. You've used the deform flare before on the chair legs on the wooden chair. So we'll go with deform flare. We'll figure out which side the front and back is with our channel box editor. I'll change my start flare to 0.5. Aha, that's the back of my chair. Isn't that convenient? Let's go with 0.6 instead. 0.7. Great, that's my chair. And once we've set up our flare, edit, delete by type, history. Great. So that's our chair seat. Now let's talk about the random circle we left at the top of our cylinder earlier. This cylinder is going to be all of the mechanical gobbledygook that we decided we aren't going to model for now. So what we're going to do, I'm going to scale this down by selecting the border edges. There we go. I'm going to extrude it a little bit down the sides. I'm going to select some quantity of faces. I'm going to go with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. How's that look? If I do 7, do I get something pretty? No. Alright. Well, let's see. This is the front. So 1, 2, 3, 4 down the left. And 1, 2, 3, 4 down the right. 4. Scale those flat so that I end up with this rhombus-like shape. This sort of matches this weird cylinder square shape that it's got going on. Now, this thing we know has 20 edges. So let's count the edges we have on the boundary of our chair. Instead of counting though, I'm just going to select them all, turn on my heads-up display, go to my polycount, and see how many edges I have. 24. That's a shame. Let's delete a couple of these so that we have 20. Delete the one down the middle. 22. Alright, instead of deleting the one down the middle, we'll delete these. 1, 2. Now when I select my boundary edges, I've got 20. When I smooth it, it still looks like a chair seat. So now that I've got 20 there and 20 here, bridge them. Oh no, what's the issue? Multiple objects selected. Right. Object. Yes.
What does your caps lock on mean?
Means I have caps lock on.
Like, does it do anything?
I have no idea. I've never seen it matter.
Okay.
Doesn't that suck? I know that it's probably got some great functionality, but I don't know it.
I'm looking this up. I'm really confused on what I know.
So make sure that our chair seat lines up with the chair seat in the image. Edges. Now that we've object combined it, let's see, you haven't object combined it yet. Mesh combine. There we go. Select our boundary edges, the chair seat, the wheel mount, and bridge it, and we'll see if it handled it well. Oh gosh, it's twisted. Well, we're gonna try and untwist it. Nope, not that way. There we go. That's nice and even. Now, from here, I'm gonna add an edge loop. I'm just going to grab this edge loop that was in the middle, drag it up. Hold V, drag it to the bottom of the chair. That's the machinery. That's the machinery shape. Now, if you want, you can go into the view with all of the diagram, and we can add in some extra edge loops to mold the machinery to the right shape. So we're going to grab these faces. Can I select faces, please? Thank you. Scale this in to match the diagram. Oh, wrong way. There we go. Let's see if it matches the other side. No. Let's scale all of that in. Okay. And then we've got this bump, which I'm going to create an edge loop roughly the right size. Edge, select that edge loop, drag it down, scale it in. Another edge loop, scale it to match the top of the bump. Edge, select, move that. And you can round this out as you wish. So if you want to get it really accurate, you can keep adding in edge loops and just scaling it to match the diagram. And you'll end up something It looks sort of like this. Yes?
Is that an excessive amount of edge loops or no?
So this is a chair. Frankly speaking, this is a model that is roughly the size of a human person. Depending on your LODs, what'll happen in the modeling world is you'll make something really high definition, and then you will take what it looks like and put it on something that doesn't look as high definition, and we call that baking. If you'd like, later on in the semester, I can show you an example of baking before finals week, and you can sort of get an idea for what modeling for a game would look like. If you're modeling something for, say, a phone game, your number of edge loops needs to be a lot lower than for something like a computer high-end Alienware game. This is a perfectly acceptable number of edges. I mean, I've currently only got 4,000 verts. Frankly, that's incredibly low. This is a very low calling level for something like this. Now, before we move on to the armrests, I'm going to very quickly pull up the image of the chair that looks good. It's got a bit of a bulge on the sides. I'm going to add that bulge by just grabbing some of these edge loops along the side and dragging them out. I'm going to go to my top view so that I can make sure that I'm doing this in a way that makes sense. So I've dragged those edge loops to sort of where I want them, but now my curve is off. So I'm going to select a couple more edge loops. These two, same thing on the opposite side, these two, these two. And I am just eyeballing it, but you sort of have a feel for what round things look like. I'd like to believe that you have a feel for what round things look like. So I'm just going to bulge it out until it pleases me. These need to be a bit wider. Round. And I'm going to pull the front in a little bit. There we go. Chair shape. So the armrests. The armrests are rectangles, just all around. Some chairs have cylindrical armrests. Ours, luckily, is just a bunch of rectangles with this little cylinder running through them that acts as a stopping pin so that you can move the armrest up and down. So let's start with the bottom of the armrest. I'm going to open up this side view. Can anybody tell me how we're going to create this C shape?
Bend function.
The bend function. So I'm going to create a rectangle, make cube, scale her up, drag it up, line it up with our wonderful diagram, roughly of where it goes. We know that it comes out from roughly the underside of the seat. So I'm going to line it up about halfway with the mechanism that we'll put underneath. Right, I'm going to put it, we'll call it there. Now I don't have a good measure for thickness on the diagram because on the diagram the armrest is just a straight line. But we're going to look at it from this view. See if it sort of matches the thickness of the armrest in the 3/4 view. And we're going to make it a little thinner. Call that good. Now, from here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it incredibly long. There it is. And I'm going to go to my mesh tools, insert edge loop, double click that, put it on multiple edge loops. I'm going to make this give me 20 edge loops down the length of it. Please. Thank you. 20 edge loops down the length of my rectangle. Go to object mode. Deform. Non-linear bend. My bend is vertical. Oh dear. Let's increase my curvature to see which way it's bending. bending that way. So let's rotate it to bend to the right way, vertically this way, and lengthwise. There we go. Now it's bending the right way, but we don't need it to bend the whole length. So I'm going to change my low bound to 0, and I'm going to figure out which side that is. Okay, it looks like I'm working on the right, or I guess it would be the left armrest this time around. So let's line that up to where we want it to go. Good stuff. Oh, I accidentally set a keyframe. You didn't see that. I'm going to select my bend. I'm going to drag it in to where I need it to start bending. And then I'm going to start playing with my curvature. So 45, not quite enough. Let's go 90. 90, very good, but very big. I'm going to reduce my high bound to 0.2. Oh no. Let's try that again. Swap this to 1, see if I can make my envelope 0.2. Also, oh no. Alright, see if I can drag my bend in a bit more. You know what? Let's call that good. If I scale it down, it'll end up looking thinner. Man, how do I want to fix this issue? Let's see if I can't make this crazy. That's not going to give me what I want. There we go. Still not going to give me what I want. Alright, so since it's not going to give me what I want, I'm going to do this the hard way. This is the right angle for the bend to be at. So I'm going to set the correct angle and delete by type history. And then I'm just going to delete the chunks that we won't need. This is the beginnings of my armrest. Now, as I mentioned previously, if I just scale this down to be the right size, it's going to become incredibly thin. But we're going to work around that. So get it down to the right size. And now comes the fun part. Select the faces and extrude them out. And when I say select the faces, I mean all the faces, except for the end caps. I'm going to delete the 2 end caps. And there we go. Select all the faces. Extrude in thicken. Now, when I do this, I can get the right amount of thickness that I want for it, except for the end caps. Those will end up a little bit squished in. So we can delete the end caps. Boop, and re-extrude them out. Now you'll notice if you've done this correctly, that your armrest now has an inside. Does anyone else notice that the armrest has an inside? From a mechanical perspective, I can explain what has happened by undoing my extrusion. When I extruded the faces thicker, you will notice that I have left the hollow behind. And in fact, if I zoom in, you can see that the hollow, the original tube, is still in there. From a practical, if I'm an engineer perspective, what I've done is I've created a pipe, but the interior pipe is still theoretically useful if you actually wanted to build the armrest, because that is the part that pivots in and out and lets you change the size of the armrest. We are modelers, so the inside pipe, goodbye. Once I've done that, I'm going to take my boundary edges along the bottom of my armrest, screw them in, hook them up to my chair. Oop, my armrest was not centered. Let's drag that this way, get it nice and centered. My chair. I've been doing this along the back of the chair. I'm a moron. Alright, let's drag this to the side of my chair and pretend that none of that ever happened. Yes?
Would it be easier to rotate the
The whole chair.
Yeah.
It's about the same.
The diagram.
If you can, okay, so rotating image planes in Maya kind of sucks.
Well, not the image plane, but the actual chair itself.
You can rotate the chair itself, yeah. So, if you'd like to keep it lined up to the diagram, yes, you can just rotate the chair 90 degrees. That's probably a sane answer. There we go. Drag that way. Alright. Let's continue going. So, armrest, chair, lined up, extrude the bottom, armrest, the top, extrude that up. Whoop. There's my armrest. Make it as tall as the armrest. Great. So, from here, let's take a better, closer look at this. We've got a bit of an extrusion around the outside, right? Because this tube goes into a sleeve. So I'm going to select some faces. We'll go these, whoop, these, and these. And thicken, Control E, pull it out. We get that weird curve along the bottom again. Let's get rid of that. Boom. So I'm just going to scale this out a bit to line it up with the rest of it. There we go. And we've once again created this. Don't like it, get rid of it. No. We've got the sleeve, sort of comes up and in at an angle. I'm not going to cut them in because frankly I think that looks incredibly uncomfortable. Yeah, they angle in. Alright. Wow. That case. These top ones, congratulations, you're going in. Don't know if it's quite that extreme. Also made it quite a bit too thick, I think. So I'm gonna shrink down my thickness. Make it a little thinner this way around. There we go. Drag these faces back in. Sure. Give me the front view. That doesn't look wrong. Probably a bit taller though. I don't think that the diagram does it justice. Alright, and lastly, the little things on top of them. So, what I'm going to do for the things on top of them is I'm going to make a new cube. Cube. Drag it into position. Make it a little large. Keep it down. Nice and flat. Nice and thin. Put it in this way. Put it in that way. See roughly how long it is. It covers about a third of the chair seat. So let's call it that big. The diagram actually has a good view of what it looks like from the side. So let's rotate this for a bit. Drag it over here, see if it's around the same size. Looks like I got it right. Good. Position it back. And from here, what we're going to do is I'm going to add an extrusion. And I add an edge loop. I'm just going to extrude this face down. More. And I'm going to make it a trapezoid because in the reference image, it is a trapezoid. So, that's an armrest. Now, this is my armrest. It all needs to be one piece. Object combine, mesh combine. Now it's all one piece. If I smooth it, looks fine. Needs a bit of edge loops here and there. Notable edge loops. It isn't a cylinder, right? It's not supposed to look like a cylinder. It's supposed to have an edge loop going down the middle and these two edge loops on the side. So I'm just going to do that. Add an edge loop going down the middle. Puff it out a bit. And just to make sure that it stays puffed out, I'm going to add another edge loop at around, oh, let's say 40 on both sides. There we go. I'm gonna put this out. Now when I smooth it, get that nice bump. You can keep adding edge loops to it if you want it to look really crisp. Oh gosh. So let's go back here, add another edge loop. Right up against that edge loop, 90 on both sides. And then when I smooth it, then I really get that sharp line down the middle that we see in the reference.
That's the button. What's the button that's on
The button is very easy. We're going to add a cylinder and just stick it in the middle. So let's add that button. Let me fix the top of my armrest before I add that button. Looks very crisp. That's that. Okay. Good. Two more down this side. And we'll make sure that we've got that. And one here and one there. But not too high up so that it's still sort of rounded on top. Yeah, and it's also got this sort of bump in the middle. So I'll add one more edge loop that goes this way. And bump that up. Let's go U to U. Let me select you. Thank you. Bump that up. Whoop. Nice. Armrest. Alright, now the happy little cylinder in the middle. The little cylinder that could. Here it is. Make it a little bigger. Or aim it. Drag it in. It's a little thinner, but actually it's not quite a cylinder. It's a little flat on the side. So what we're going to do, drag it into position. Looks like it's about that thick. Yes.
Subdivisions, right? Lower subdivisions now?
Yes, we will lower subdivisions. We don't actually have to boolean it in, but we'll lower subdivisions. We'll call it 8. And what we're going to do, we're just going to select the bottom half of the cylinder. Alright? Just the bottom half of the cylinder. I'm just going to extrude that down. Isn't that nice? Now if I look inside my cylinder, I'm going to make sure that there's no spaces in there. Looking good. So this is the button. I didn't make it big enough to pierce out the back. So I'm going to start by looking at it from the front. Look forward view. Angle it to match the angle that I shoved the armrest into. Scale it up. Drag it back in. Line it up to where it's supposed to be. Oh gosh, I made it a bit too long. If you don't want to do all of that, you can move the W to object. That looks about right. Great.
Wait, how do you open the tool settings?
Double click any of the tools. Yeah. It's the same thing as when we push the happy little boxes in the menu things. You can also just double click on them in the sidebar. So now we've got this happy little object. This is the button that is inside of the armrest. I'm going to select all of the top faces, again, just by hitting tab and painting over them. Same thing with the back faces. How much time do we have left? 10 minutes? Let's lightning round this. Offset this. Extrude them back out. Oh, that's in. There we go. That's the button. Just add fencing. The back of the chair. The back of the chair is all rectangles. Whoop. So, the back of the chair, we're going to make this with the rectangle with the bend tool. Same thing like we did the armrests. Rectangle, make big. Flatten it out. Add a couple subdivisions to it. Which side's my back? This side. Drag this over here. Subdivisions, let's go 20. subdivision, let's go 20, thank you. Mesh tools, deform, nonlinear bend. Ah, the bend is actually vertical this time. Let's go curvature 20. There's the back of my chair. You are all welcome to leave, because we're close to running out of time. Just be aware that your chair is due Wednesday. Bend the back of my chair a bit. Now, to get that flare effect that we see from the back view, go to my back view, we're going to use the flare tool towards the top and bottom. So, edit, delete bisect history, deform, nonlinear flare, the bottom. Let's change this to 1.5, if you want it wider. Oh, hello? How about 4? Oh, it's doing it the weirdest way possible. Ah, it's because I'm doing it in X and not in Z. Start flare Z. There we go. Nice and wide at the bottom. We also want it wide at the top, but we also don't want it. Let's put it at -1 and see what happens if I make the flare top. I don't like that. 0, 1, -0.5. There we go. That's the back of my chair. It's got this hole in it. You can bully in a hole out of a rectangle, I believe in you. All of the sidebars, the bars that go across, are also just cubes. Here's a cube, right to the back, R, like big. Now, we can count how many there are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We can see how big the back is. So we want to scale these up so that 7 of these fit, and they have that little gap in between all of them. So here is something that looks like it might be the right size. Right. I'm going to drag it up, leave a little gap, and once I drag it up, I can hit Shift D to scale it up. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Made them a bit too tall. Gonna select them all. Hit D. Oop, I've selected my pen deformer. So let's select the chair back, please. Edit, delete bisect history. Thank you. Select these, not the camera, thank you. R, D, V, R, squeeze these down. There we go. Now if I hit 3, they're already almost the shape that we want them to be. Give me a front view again. Just leave a front view, thank you. So we want them to sort of bulge up. So we'll start with the bottom one. I'm going to hold Shift to draw straight lines with my multi-cut tool. Note that I'm doing this in the middle of nowhere. So I'm going to hold Shift. I'm going to start by cutting it down the middle. Hold Shift slightly. I'm actually going to do this in the side view so you can see what's going on. Object mode, select all of these. Control 1, F. So, holding Shift in the middle of nowhere. 45-degree angle cut. Delete these faces. I don't like them. Delete that face, don't like it either. Delete this face, don't like it either. Edge, double click this, bridge it. Oop, that was extrude. Bridge, please. Thank you. And fence it. Then, delete the half I don't like. Mirror this. Didn't click on anything. There we go. We're currently mirroring it in the X negative direction. We want it in the Z positive direction. There we go. Chair bump. Ta-da. Now, if you want to not have the cylindrical view, we can fence it a bit down the middle. We still want it sort of round, so just one edge loop will do. We'll do the same thing for all of these, or if you're particularly adventurous, now that you sort of know where they're supposed to end up, I'm going to drag them out of the way. These are my reference boxes for where they're going to end up. I'm going to drag the first one, move it up. Notice that the first one kind of looks like the second one up here. So I'm going to flip this around. Oop, oop, where's my pivot? Aha, my pivot is off. Modify center pivot. There we go. Rotate it around. Put that up, say, there. Fill in the gap. This one, same thing. Modify center pivot. Oh yeah, 100%. Rotate it around. Scale it wide. Notice that the angle's a bit off. So let's select one half of it. Select that bit. Rotate them in. Squash them down. See how that looks. Don't really like that. If you don't like doing it that way, you can of course always just make a new cut. So let's go. That looks shallow enough. Delete these faces. We don't like them. Delete these faces. Rebridge these faces. Delete the half we don't like. That's mesh here. This time it's going in the negative Z direction. Scale it. That looks a little better. The middle bar, perfectly round. This one can just be straight up rectangle. Drag that back in. Add some fencing to the side. It's got a bit of a curve though, so let's add an edge loop going halfway down the side. Just pull these edge loops out of it. 1 and 2. There we go. This one, object, we're going to duplicate it down, just rotate it so that it looks up. And we've got the two top ones to do. I'm just going to duplicate this one. Whoop. Scale it in. And let's make sure that the angle's all right. The angles should sort of line up when they're not smooth. That's an easy way to tell if you're doing it right. That looks about right. Maybe a bit too steep, I've made it. Faces, please, thank you. One. Let's do this. Huh? What the, oh. Here we go. Delete the half I don't like. Mirror it. Do negative Z. Go back down. One more for the headrest. The headrest is a bit taller than the rest, so scale it up. And lastly, move it so that they follow the spine. So the spine sort of has this back bend to it. Let's see if I can get a good side view of the chair. Did I have a side view already open? No. Side view, you. So here's the side view of our chair. They all sort of bend forward. So what I'm gonna do, once I have my back sort of laid out how I want it, I'm actually gonna make the top bars a little thicker actually. And let's make this one not as shit. Whew. Hello? How did that happen? Okay. Gotta love Maya. These, switch this in. object, flash mirror. Z, negative, thank you. Alright. So once we've got this, we want to bend them forward a little bit because it looks like a spine. So what I'm going to do, object, I'm going to combine all of these. Get one. Why are you like this? Second to last one. Oh, mesh, combine. There we go. Deform, nonlinear bend. Rotate my bend to go this way. Increase my bend properties to go this way. Oh, I've got it bending backwards. Rotate 180 degrees, please. Thank you. Let's go 30. Now they're all sort of bending forwards. Oh, there's an extra one. Get rid of that. Pull this one in the middle, pull it back. Great. And we just want to line them up so that they curve the right way. So edit, delete the type history, select them one at a time, move them so that they match the curvature of the chair. Whoop. Right, we'll line them up that way, delete the reference. I'm actually going to hide my reference cube at this point. There's basically my chair. I'm going to mirror the armrest over. Positive Z, if you please. Thank you. Oh, I've missed this thing. Yeah, thank you. Positive Z. Good stuff. And the back of the chair. I'm going to duplicate this. Bend it a bit more. Deform, nonlinear bend. Oh, I'm moving my bend instead of my object. Line it up to the back of the cushions. And that's the basics of the chair. Now the top plush sort of curves and scoops into the back of the chair. I don't expect you to do that. I do expect you to have this flare in the back of the chair. If you want to add that swoop to the back, you can do that by just extruding this top squish. So if I select the top of my squish, I can extrude that back, extrude it up a bit, rotate it, move it back, extrude it again, rotate it, move it back, extrude it, rotate it, move it back, etc., until it looks like you successfully, oh, I extruded it the wrong way that time. Extrude it, rotate it back. And you'll end up with that swoop shape that we see at the top of the chair. You'll want to make it thicker as you go back. You can do that by just putting a couple faces in, squeezing them in. Move these faces. Squeeze them in. Hello? Thank you. And we're going to take this middle edge here, drag that down, squeeze in our end plate. There's the back of the chair. Oh, I've accidentally selected some faces on the front of the chair. Oh dear, how far back does that go? Oh, it actually doesn't do anything. Never mind. Select these. All right. that effectively concludes today's class. Now, didn't get a time to go into new rendering, so I won't expect anything more than I expected for the crate. What I do expect are those 3 views. So I would expect something that looks like the back view, the side view, preferably without your image planes. Go ahead and delete those before you render. But give me a back view render, a side view render, and a 3/4-ish angle. All good? Yes, and a wireframe. Wireframe is very good. And final reminder, happy little blue cube. Wireframe, good. Huzzah. Sorry about coming in late today. Sorry about going to time today. Wednesday we will be having another critique. This go around I will be also grading you on your ability to critique. So, if you happen to respond to critique in a silly fashion, such as by seeing crates that look like Zach's, sorry to call you out, Zach. Well, let's see if I can find your crate. If you respond to a crate that looks like this, with critique that says, sure glad it took a lot of effort, screws look cool, instead of calling out the 8,000 n-gons and the excessive subdivisions, maybe you'll get points off. Try and give meaningful feedback. Good. That's it. That's me. Y'all are good to go. I'll get the recording up by tomorrow night. Promise. I need to run and get my hard drive.